Hello everybody. Welcome to our Wellbeing in the Workplace webinar. I am Jolene, Service Manager. I've worked at ADM now for 15 years, starting as an engineer myself. A little bit about ADM. We started in 1984 as an MSP. We have around 70 members of staff, and as a Microsoft Gold partner, have various awards and certifications in ISO, Cyber Essentials, Kent and Medway Workplace Wellbeing Awards. So I manage a team of around 50 engineers, of which are technical, each coming from different backgrounds. Some of the apprentices whose first experience of working has been remote and not having a full team around them to support them in the office. We joined the Kent and Medway Healthy Workplace programme last year, as I was concerned that staff would feel isolated and disconnected from the workplace whilst working from home. Since then, we've been able to achieve the Bronze, Silver and Gold awards. This has helped us to create a healthy workspace where staff feel cared about and supported. I'd like to introduce you to Kathryn from Kent and Medway Healthy Workplaces. She'll be running through the importance of wellbeing, how to support your staff and how to implement this within the workplace. Please do use the question and answers throughout the session if you have anything you'd like to comment or ask about.
Perfect. Oh, thank you, Jo. Thank you so much for that intro, and thanks for having me today. So as Jo mentioned, my name is Kathryn Swinney, and I'm the Workplace Health Coordinator, one of 4 in the Kent and Medway Healthy Workplaces program. So I'm going to talk about what that sort of means in a moment. But I've been working in workplace wellbeing for over 5 years now. My background is in exercise science and nutrition and psychology. And then I worked both in the States and now in the UK supporting businesses to implement workplace wellbeing in lots of different sizes and sectors. So what we're really going to focus on today, as Jo's mentioned, is talk about the importance of wellbeing in the workplace, but really sort of how do we practically embed a sort of culture of wellbeing into whatever organization, and sector that your organization looks like, and really go into some of the strategic but practical things to consider as well. So just a bit of background about the program. So if you operate in Kent or Medway, I'd highly encourage you to sort of look us up. We're a Kent County Council commissioned service to provide free workplace wellbeing support to businesses operating in Kent and Medway. There's no sort of size requirement or sector restriction. It's open to anyone. We're operated by Medway Council, and we've been endorsed by Public Health England back when we started in 2018. We provide a range of support really based on what the needs of the organization are, and that's done through the lens of what's called our Kent and Medway Workplace Wellbeing Award. So it's a framework to really give you a bit of a structure to how to actually implement workplace wellbeing initiatives, and we do that through the Bronze, Silver, Gold, or Platinum award level, and with different pledges to sort of commit to at each of the award levels. So we do that through a range of different sort of support to get you through those award levels, and this is really probably the best slide. I'm quite a visual person, so we break down our free support to businesses through these 3 categories, and that's training and activity support, communication and resource support, and then partnership support. So again, it's a free program, so if you're in Kent or Medway, you'd be eligible for it. And really the sort of sell of the program is that we offer free mental health training spaces, depending on how big your organization are. We offer you anywhere from 1 to 6 spaces, and that can be used for either mental health first aid, or for another training course called Connect 5, which they're very complementary of each other. If you've looked at mental health first aid costs, you know they probably tend to range between £300 to £350 per person. So it can be quite a cost savings when you join our program. But we also offer workplace health champion training. We're building a structure for that. And we also do a range of sort of workshops like this today, where we can talk to your staff around sleep or musculoskeletal health. We've had some on menopause health, men's health, mental health, resilience, physical activity, healthy eating. We've got quite quite a range, and we do that sort of pre-recorded, recorded, and face, subject to whatever the guidance is at the time. So if that's something of interest to you, just let us know. We also do a range of kind of resource support as well. So if you need some support with your well-being policies, we have a whole members-only resource website page where you can look at it to kind of correspond to the award levels. And we also send you just a sort of monthly newsletter. We don't bombard you, but just some kind of, updates on any trainings or events we're doing, or any sort of national awareness campaign days to be aware of. And again, if you're in the Kent or Medway area, we do a lot of partnership work with the health improvement services. So that can be the stop smoking support, your weight loss support, doing physical activity challenges. So setting up a bespoke activity challenge for you, or loaning out our health kiosks, which measure blood pressure, height, weight, BMI, which you can loan out for 4 weeks at a time for free. So that's just a bit of kind of what we do. If it's something of interest and you're in the area, happy to have an informal chat about it. But really what I want to focus on, regardless of wherever you sort of live or operate in, is to try to provide some practical tips along the way. And what I'd love to do, obviously because I can't see anyone right now, is just if you could sort of add in the chat, what does it mean to look after your staff's well-being? It seems like a pretty obvious question, but I think you may find there's quite a range of different responses when I normally ask this question. So I'd really love to see sort of what that means for yourself. And we'll kind of use those responses as I go along. But when we think about, the past 2 years, really, it's all we can see that, our health and well-being has been impacted in however, a range of ways, really. And if you ever just sort of need any fast statistics or just so any decision makers, this might be a helpful slide. So this was some of the sort of a range of different surveys that were used throughout sort of 2020 to show the impact. So just some ones to highlight, so we see 1 in 6 report mental ill health in a year. This rose to 8 in 10 in 2020. Over half of businesses found that they needed to increase their focus on health and well-being, just as Joe said with ADM computing. If you're working in more of a remote setting, especially if you have new starters, it's looking at how to support them better. But also our senior management really had a lot on their plate as well, and especially line managers, or if you had family responsibilities or caring responsibilities, there was a lot on people's plate. And it's just looking about if we're going to be working, whether it's in our homes or in an office or out on a site, if we're doing something for the majority of our working day, we can really start to make an influence on our health and well-being, and that's going to have a knock-on effect with our ability to do our jobs effectively, to do it productively, to have that reduction in our sickness absence, to have a better quality of life, to have really what we see in our evaluation in the program is really that boost in staff morale and staff engagement levels, because again, it can be quite isolating if you're in a hybrid setup, or if you're going to continue to be remote. So it's looking at how do we make whatever environment our staff are working in, that the healthy environment becomes the default, and how does sort of a culture of well-being just become ingrained so that no matter what, the capacities tend to be strained or there's a lot on people's plate, that well-being is still in the background and it's still working and supporting staff. So just again, so I've been working in workplace wellbeing for over 5 years now, and a range of different organizations on different sizes. I've worked with one that's been in 60 locations with 6,000 staff, and now I support over 36 organizations currently in the program, ranging from 2 staff members up to 2,000. So these are just some of my own sort of top tips, but also what we know from kind of evidence-based best practice to consider if you are looking to figure out what kind of well-being support you want to sort of implement to your staff. So the first thing is just to actually get some data. We may know anecdotally that maybe staff are struggling or that we want to do something, but what data do you actually have to support that, right? So it's looking at are there informal or formal ways you can get staff feedback to share how they're doing? That could be through a staff survey, which we have sort of a survey that people in the organization who join the Healthy Workplaces program can utilize. But if you're more national based, I have a link to a resource to a website that has some survey question banks that you can utilize to do a staff survey. But also looking at, exit interviews or absence data or any sort of needs assessment to figure out, right, what actually is happening. I think I anecdotally know, or I hear things informally, but how is that going to drive my decision making? So once you have that data, then look at how you're going to make a plan. I know so many businesses, particularly during the pandemic, where we just had to be reactive to everything that was happening to us, right? But actually, maybe it's looking at 2022 as a year to plan, to figure out what has worked, what didn't work, and start to align your business priorities with what the needs of the well-being needs of your staff are, because they will align quite closely. But like any good goal, we want to have a plan to it, and we want it to be measurable and time bound. So we have that, it kind of hold our feet to the fire, and it should be the same with well-being initiatives. We don't just want to sort of do things ad hoc, but rather make it comprehensive so staff can connect the dots between the things that you're doing, and they can be more impactful that way. So it's thinking, what are your milestone moments? What would success look like for you when you plan out kind of what you want to do in terms of well-being initiatives? And I love this quote that I heard from a conference recently, that what gets measured gets managed. So if we have, something that we're measuring in terms of a well-being kind of KPI target, it's thinking about what does that look like, either informally or formally. Then the next sort of big top tip is make sure we have senior leadership buy-in. This is so crucial. I do believe it kind of works top down, but also bottom up, but making sure we have some sort of kind of senior leadership buy-in, that they approve of, what well-being initiatives you're doing, and that they're really walking the walk and talking the talk as well. Having some sort of responsibility. So if well-being and kind of human resources really sat at a sort of senior leadership level, that just ensures that it continues to be sustained, whether someone leaves or someone just joins a new job, that well-being is still on the priority list, right? So then the next sort of top tip is engaging with staff. So again, oftentimes we had to be really reactive during the pandemic and just doing things to sort of support staff. But again, maybe it's looking at, this year to be a reflective year to think about, well, what are staff wanting to do? We want to avoid being in a scenario where we're kind of telling staff that they should be healthy. Because if anyone's ever been told you should be healthy, does that really make you want to be healthy, right? We like to have a bit of autonomy. So it's just ensuring that we're encouraging well-being messages, that we're utilizing our assets within our team. So if you have someone in your organization who's really passionate about health and well-being personally, or they're really well respected by their peers, could you not kind of pull them in as a bit of a staff forum or a champion network, and they can be your biggest sort of promoters and really be that word of mouth and kind of help start to remove some of the barriers to even engage in well-being initiatives anyway. But it's also thinking about your line managers. So line managers are really the linchpin, I feel like, in my experience. You may have senior leadership that think the well-being is great, but if the line managers don't feel equipped to know how to support their staff, then it tends to fall through. So it's looking at what support your managers need, whether that's holding any kind of just informal or formal action groups, just to kind of hear what type of training they may need or support, or what are the challenges that keep coming up, and then you can engage in the best way to ensure that the well-being initiatives you're doing will actually land. And then finally, just sort of last top tip when it comes to strategic planning, to make sure we're utilizing credible resources. If you've ever, again, tried to Google workplace well-being resources or workplace well-being information, there is a sea of information out there, and it can be really hard, especially if you're not, a specialist in this subject, to know what's actually credible and what's not. I have a sort of slide at the end of this presentation of some credible organizations to access, but it's really making sure that whatever we are communicating is credible information, information that are consistent with sort of national key messages. But then also thinking about within your organization, what's going to be the best way to communicate those messages to staff? Is it a notice board? Is it, now that we're hybrid working, a combination of, sort of a virtual notice board? So again, with ADM Computing, they set up Microsoft Teams folders where they could access wellbeing resources that way. Is it a WhatsApp group? Is it an intranet portal? Whatever it looks like for your organization, just think about how you're going to communicate those resources when you are looking to promote them to staff. I'm a big, proponent of sort of practical tips, though, when we leave any webinars. So in terms of practical tips I can give you to support, your wellbeing action plan or wellbeing initiatives, we know that from research that there are sort of key characteristics of what makes up good jobs, and they tend to really closely align with well-being practices. So having a workplace where it feels fair and that you feel valued, that you feel supported in, that you feel like there's growth and progression or continuous professional development in. All of those things we know from research are good characteristics of what makes up a good job. And if we're doing things for our well-being, they're going to align really closely to that. And that's just going to help with retaining our employment, but also equally, if we're doing wellbeing initiatives, especially if we have in your area, or if you're in Kent and Medway, having an award to kind of visually show your commitment to wellbeing, that can be really powerful. So some of these things that we can do is just making sure you're having regular check-ins, both informally and formally. That's especially important in a hybrid working setup. So it's working out, what are the expectations when it comes to communication? What's the best way to communicate? Are you a manager where you just want informal check-ins with your staff that and they're happy to do that through Teams, but also scheduling kind of, every sort of 2 weeks, a structured one-to-one, just working out what's going to be best to check in with your staff in formal and formal ways. Then looking at your work environment to support well-being. So again, I always feel that sometimes we associate workplace well-being with like desk yoga or physical activity challenges, and those things are great. But when the going gets tough and our capacities are strained, it's it's making sure that our environment is set up in a way that the healthy option is the default option. So it's looking at your environment and seeing, are there opportunities to maybe innovate or think about how we're encouraging healthy lifestyles. So again, hybrid working, we had a lot more control in an office setting, and we can ensure that we had a team fruit bowl, or we had access to to water and things like that. But now in a hybrid setting, how are we still encouraging those messages? Are we encouraging and promoting any like healthy snacks or healthy lunch options? Having a virtual team lunch and you do a theme to it, all those sorts of ways. So it's just thinking about how you're going to make that work environment still healthy and new ways of working. Having recognition is also really important to support our staff well-being. So whether that's, again, informal or formal, making sure that staff feel recognized, especially when there's so much going on. It's just those really small ways that actually do mean a lot to individuals. Also clarifying expectations and encouraging that work-life balance. So that kind of goes back to the senior management as well, being able to exemplify that you're encouraging a positive work-life balance. So that could be email signatures and, ensuring that I'm working flexibly. I don't expect a response after your normal working hours. That could be and having really exemplifying, hey, I'm going to go out on my lunch break while it's daylight and during the winter to make sure I'm getting out and being healthy. I encourage you all to do the same. Just those sorts of ways is looking at how can we really encourage that work-life balance in a really positive way, and clarify what the expectations are for that. Training is also really, really important. So again, I mentioned earlier that line managers really become the linchpin to supporting staff well-being. If they have a lot on their plate and well-being just feels like another thing to add to their plate, they're going to be much less likely to feel like they can really adequately support their staff. So that may be looking at what training you need to provide to managers or to key, champions in the organization. So that could be mental health training, that could be difficult conversations. or doing sort of well-being workshops on different topics to make them feel more equipped to answer things that may come up in one-to-ones with staff. And then again, finally, encouraging that two-way forum. So we don't want to just be telling staff what to do. We want staff to feel empowered to make these choices themselves. And again, have that healthy environment be the default environment. So having regular feedback and channels of feedback so staff can share their ideas or share, maybe what's not working, or feel that they're involved in the process. They're just going to be much more likely to engage. And it's also going to improve their well-being as well. So I know that was a lot of information and top tips. Hopefully you found some of them useful. If you are Kent and Medway based, I've just highlighted a couple of credible resources that you can utilize, and promote to your staff. So One U Kent is the sort of Kent and Medway focused health improvement services in the area. So they do all the stop smoking, the weight loss, the worksite health checks, all that sort of stuff. And Release the Pressure is a sort of crisis line that anyone can call 24/7, 365 days a year. That's commissioned by Kent County Council. And then I know it's very, very small, but just this is an example of a sort of matrix that's color-coded by kind of well-being area that I put together for East Kent businesses who joined the program as a way where you could just have all the hyperlinks to all the different intervention services for different topics, as well as just general knowledge websites. But if you are a bit more further afield, there's still some credible resources out there, and it's just kind of, finding what actually is. So hopefully this slide will be helpful. We always want to reinforce any kind of national websites or campaigns that may be happening. So for example, what used to be the Public Health England's 1U service or 1U campaign, local councils will take that up in slightly different ways depending on the area that you're in. But the kind of newer version of that is the NHS Better Health. So that is a nationwide campaign, and that has all the kind of health improvement information that you can support and just signpost staff to. Again, you don't need to be the expert, but it's signposting them to where they can find credible, expertise and information on. NHS Choices is also really great for information on things like healthy sleep, top tips. Every Mind Matters, again, also really helpful for mental health, just general information. The BNF, or British Nutrition Foundation, is great for healthy eating resources and leaflets, and they have their own healthy eating week that you could tag in on within the workplace when that happens each year. As always, Mind has really great resources if you're looking for mental health information. And in terms of information or credible resources, when you are a bit further afield and looking for how to actually build a bit of a structure to your well-being initiatives, the three remaining are also really helpful. So Business in the Community have really fantastic, really, really thorough toolkits on different well-being topics that can just be some really great ones that you can sift through and start to build a structure around. What Works Wellbeing is an independent website that kind of collates all of the research that gets done and policy implementation that gets done for workplace well-being. So that can be really helpful if you're looking on how to build a structure to it. And then Mental Health at Work also is a really great sort of collation of lots of different credible resources that are really, really helpful as well. So hopefully if you're a bit further afield and you don't have kind of a regional workplace well-being award structure that you can join, you still have something there. Just as a final wrap up, so just a bit of a case study. So again, this webinar has been really kindly promoted by ADM Computing, who, as they mentioned, they joined the Kent and Medway Healthy Workplaces program back in May of 2021. So they completed the Bronze Award in June. So they followed those sort of strategic top tips and making sure they had senior management buy-in, looking at their staff survey data and reviewing their policies. Then they were able to do a bit of a mapping exercise to figure out what are their gaps, what was the data showing that they needed to maybe prioritize or what they needed to focus on more. And then they utilized the free mental health training offer that we provided through the program to get some training up to some line managers and to key staff. They then flew through gold. We gave them an award report highlighting areas of strength and areas of improvement, and they're continuing on that journey at our platinum level. And just a bit of the evaluation feedback, because we're really big on evaluation in the program. them. Just that little quote there where they found it was a great service. But if you do have any queries, we've got a few minutes left if you wanted to just add any more questions into the Q&A. I've also got a very, very quick survey, which I'll put in the Q&A, the link to as well. If you've got your phone out, you can scan the QR code. It's just 3 questions, and if you want the slides from today's webinar or just to get in contact with us, just fill out that survey very, very quickly. It's anonymous unless you choose to leave your email, and then we can get in contact with you. But we've got all our details there. So thank you so much for your time, everyone, and we'll take it back to Jill.
Lovely. Thank you, Kathryn. Yeah, very, very informational slides there. Obviously, we went on board with this after seeing a presentation very like that one right in the very beginning. And yeah, Kathryn's been amazing and helping us throughout the whole journey in achieving these awards, and obviously making suggestions and obviously giving us a lot of resources to help us get there. And there's quite a few questions and things that have come up there, Kathryn. So obviously the first one, open communication and checking in is important to a lot of people. At ADM, we use Teams a lot, so we make sure that the guys are communicating daily with their morning check-in messages so that everyone knows what they're doing, where they're going, that kind of thing. We also do monthly check-ins with our staff. That helps. I ask them to give me a score, home life, work life. They don't have to divulge any information if they don't want to, or they can share, and they can share it with their team as well. So that's something that we do in regards to that one. So Warren has said there, for me, Wellbeing demonstrates that the company is well led and has a plan. Thank you for that, Warren. Anonymous, think about life balance. You never know what's going on behind someone's front door. And that's key. I think that's what we need to understand within the workplace is some people bring their home life to work, and you need to obviously appreciate every situation differently. You don't just have to take it on face value of what's happened at work. You need to obviously understand what's happening at home, and maybe have somewhere that you can have these open conversations with your staff so that they know that they can come to you and obviously help you understand what's happening. Is there any there that you'd like to comment on?
Yeah, I just saw there was a question from someone saying January is known as the worst month of the year. How to cheer our team members up? So yeah, we can definitely appreciate that the weather, the English weather, isn't as sunny and as bright as we'd hope it would be. In terms of sort of tips on or what you could sort of consider how to cheer your team members up, I think there's a couple of different mechanisms to play with that. So I think, again, if we're thinking about as a default, how do we ensure that kind of a healthy environment is there no matter what time of year it is? It would be ensuring that there's regular communication, both informally and formally, not just in their own teams because their department may be very small, but having kind of mechanisms either in a hybrid working or an on-site where there's kind of opportunities for staff socials or staff interactions. So that would be kind of throughout the year default. We want to encourage those sort of opportunities for socializing and for staff to feel connected, especially when it's, a tough month maybe. But then more specifically for this month, you can either approach it in a couple of ways. You could have your well-being sort of plan for the year and identify any national awareness campaigns that you maybe want to highlight and promote. So you may know from your data that, January, there's a bit more sickness absence or staff morale tends to be lower. And so you may want to pick an initiative or make your own. It doesn't have to be a national awareness one, but pick a sort of campaign that you can do sort of in the middle of the month that can kind of be a big boost, but also get input from staff. What's something fun that could be just sort of a staff development day or a staff social. We've all done the virtual pub quizzes, so it could just be figuring out what is something that they may want to do, or some things that you have in your local area. I know for example, we did back in October, before it got too dreary, we did a mental health focused physical activity challenge with Kent Sport that organizations could join. And it was a team challenge. So it really encouraged that socialization with a bit of friendly competition. And that was just one way. And we sent out weekly kind of comms on how our physical health can impact our mental health and our mood. So that could be just an example for you. So hope that's helpful.
We obviously at ADM understand that January is a tough month as well. So we've organised a charity walk, which we're doing next week, so Saturday actually, charity walk. We're doing a half marathon. If anyone wants to donate or sponsor us, we're helping Macmillan this month. We've got about 20 staff actually joining us on that one, which is good. But the staff that don't want to do that, or the less active staff, I think it's important to understand that not everyone wants to get out and exercise. Not everyone has their ways to relax is exercise. So a lot of the guys are organising a online gaming session. And that's something key to remember as well, that everybody is different. Some people let their hair down in different ways to others. So it's not about everyone has to go out and do this exercise. Going through this scheme has helped me realise that because I like to go out and exercise and go for walks and what have you, not everyone else likes to do the same. So it's not about pressuring people to do things that doesn't come naturally to them or they don't enjoy. It's about finding what you do enjoy and letting that be your release. Yeah, also I found just sending chocolates out to all your staff if they're working from home cheers them up as well. I've done that a few times. They get a knock on the door and surprise chocolates. So obviously from that, I'd say that the biggest thing from this is the resources that are provided, and obviously getting the feedback from your staff anonymously to know where you can improve as a business. That has really helped us a lot going forward. And obviously the last 18 months has been tough for all businesses in regards to working from home, and I do feel that using the scheme has really helped keep our staff happy, healthy, and obviously motivated to continue working at a good level and providing good customer service to our customers. So I'd like to thank Kathryn for the presentation and obviously helping us throughout the journey. And if anyone's lovely. If anyone's got any other questions or queries, we'll stay online.
We've got one more, I think. So Richard put, how do you establish the wellbeing rating /score across the employee base, thinking especially with regard to mental health? Thanks for a session. Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to approach that. You could do it so if you didn't have like a dedicated sort of HR wellbeing person, but you still wanted to capture this data, some ways that could give you a bit of a baseline is to do like a staff survey, and you could if you're not sort of Kent and Medway based, there's the What Works Wellbeing. If you are Kent and Medway based, just send me an email and I can talk about this in a little bit more detail. Or even if you're not, I'm still happy to chat. But you can do sort of like a staff survey and focus certain questions around sort of mental health. There's certain, validated national kind of scoring questions that you can use, and you can do that on a regular basis. So whether that's sort of half yearly or annually, you could do that, and you could just do it depending on the size of your organization. You could do that by departments and you have a generalized score, or you can do if there's particular kind of areas of the organization that may be struggling more so than others, you could do a bit more targeted work, or like I said, there's some kind of nationalized, or not nationalized, but there's sort of research focused, validated questions that you can pull from if you had any sort of specific and you wanted to get queries. But again, what gets measured gets managed, so you can't really choose or think that there's a problem unless you know there's one, right? So just having some sort of baseline to begin with, and then you can use qualitative data as well as that quantitative data. So you can use the score, but also really that emphasis is still on the qualitative feedback that's so rich with data as well that you get from feedback from staff. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, and what we do at ADM, as I said there, we do the check-ins, which is the scores 1 to 10, home and work life, and we also do an anonymous form that gets sent to all of our staff once a month, which is a happiness survey where staff can obviously share as much or as little as they want to, and it's literally just one question and a comments box. How are you feeling? Okay, not good, poor. And then at the bottom you can put your comments in there if you want to talk to someone about it. Obviously we've got the resources to point people in the right direction, or if they don't want to talk about it, we can kind of gauge from where they were previous months as to how we can help them going forward.
Yeah, and you've got some mechanisms where I know ADM has sort of a procedure in place that if it's a certain score, it will be flagged up to their line manager to kind of chase and follow up and see if additional support's needed. So having those types of mechanisms is really valuable.
Yeah, and it's also about having sort of anonymous feedback and as well. So if people feel that they can't speak up, we've got things in place where people can put forward anonymous feedback if they're not happy about something, or if they are happy about something. It's all it's just ways to make staff feel as though they have a voice and they are heard, because you spend most of your time at work. We want to make sure that you are happy whilst you're working. So lovely. Is there any other questions?
I don't think so. I might be missing some. But yeah, so if you are interested in any wellbeing resources, or you would like a copy of the slides, more than happy to share. Just scan that QR code, or I put the survey in the Q&A section, and you can access the survey link from there. And then we'll have your email, and I can send those out to those that want them, if you do have any other queries.
Lovely. Thank you, Kathryn, and thank you all for joining us today. As Kathryn said there, please do contact us if you have any more questions or queries.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hope you found it helpful.